I'm putting Harry Potter through the Does It Belong in December test. So far, I'm not really sure. It's kind of a puzzling thing. So let's see. Oh, you'll get your turn. Hey, Internet! Harry Potter is like a December thing now, right?
Somehow, in a weird mixture of nostalgia, some Christmassy themes, and a lot of parts of the books and movies being set in the winter, Harry Potter has sort of become a yearly tradition, with networks marathoning the series on or around the holidays. My personal relationship with Harry Potter growing up was on par with most kids my age. I really dug the world building and got attached to the characters, but as time went on, I sort of outgrew Harry Potter.
Which is apparently blasphemous.
The games are mostly a byproduct of the films. They follow the plot of the movies typically, and rarely stray past tie-in levels of quality.
And that brings us to this. I loved this game as a kid. It's one of the first 3D games I ever owned. But looking back on it, how well does it hold up today? Is it as good as I remember? Let's find out.
When you boot up the game, you get some rudimentary cutscenes told through a storybook-style presentation, which makes sense, I guess. We're talking about Harry Potter, a book. From what I can tell, this game is based around the first Harry Potter movie, but it adapts its story more closely to what took place in the book, albeit with a few elements rearranged. Immediately, we're thrown into Hogwarts, wand in hand, and Dumbledore is there and waiting to just tell us that there's a bunch of secrets in the castle. But maybe don't go looking for them, because you might die.
Which reminds me, the third floor corridor is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to suffer a most painful death.
Right away you'll notice that, well, here's Hogwarts and all of its 32-bit integer-based glory, just open and ready to roam. I mean, the game isn't divided up by anything, or that is to say, there aren't really levels or areas that the game specifically pushes you into. Instead, Hogwarts is like an open-world hub. The only thing actually keeping you from moving beyond certain places are locked doors that you will gain access to as it is contextual within the story. While the game is linear in its progression through the plot, its many side quests are pretty much up to you to discover and complete in the order you choose. The gameplay is very reminiscent of an early N64 Zelda game. There are quests for you to complete and areas to traverse, with items that you get from one area maybe having multiple uses in others.
And just like Zelda, there is jumping.
To jump gaps in the game, all you have to do is press up on the D-pad and Harry will fling himself into the abyss. Which means you have very little control over your jump arc or your trajectory. Combine that with the fact that this is a pre-analog stick game and that the camera is controlled with the R2 and L2 buttons, lining Harry up for a jump is more akin to firing a tank. There is at least a helpful mechanic for grabbing onto ledges mid-air so that you can sort of course-correct your jump if it goes wonky, but there will be moments that just doesn't matter. But what Harry Potter game would be complete without flying broomsticks? Good lord, do these parts suck! The whole process of flying a broom is sort of slapdash simple. You fly through the rings as they appear in order to either appeal some kind of timed goal, or when you're playing Quidditch to fill up a meter high enough to try and catch the snitch. The problem instead comes again from the controls. You accelerate with the X button, but that also keeps your broom from losing its levitation, so once you release the X button to decelerate and try to make a tight turn, your broom also dips slightly groundward. This means making any kind of tight turn at all is completely disorienting. The camera also plays in part in how it feels to control, as it moves with your broom to keep Harry in the immediate center of the screen. Again, no analog sticks here, so you're sort of at its mercy if you're able to actually see where the next ring is about to appear. And then there's these hitboxes. You have to be pixel perfect with the rings, else you will not fly through them. Luckily, Quidditch only plays a small part because there's only 2 house games that you have to play in order to progress the story. Every time you load the game, though, you're given an option to play either the game itself or just play Quidditch, which leads me to believe that the developers were really proud of this system. Let's talk about spells. There are 5 main spells you learn in the game. The first one you know from the start, Flipendo. This is referred to as your knockback jinx, but really it's your main form of attack. The spell is not very precise. There is sort of a lock-on and auto-aim system in place, but it only really works half of the time. Mostly you'll be using the D-pad, and the actual projectiles you fire is terribly slow, requiring a great deal of getting used to its timing. This makes it very confusing if you're already someone used to a projectile weapon in another game. This isn't a Quake or a Doom weapon where you click and shoot. This is its own level of difficulty. The second spell is Wingardium Leviosa, the levitation spell. You'll use this throughout the game where you need it to pick up objects and move them elsewhere. It works as intended. The third is Incendio, a fire spell that burns up plants. This one is honestly more frustrating to use than Flipendo. It requires timed button presses, and I can't tell if it's my controller, some kind of sync issue with my PlayStation, or the game itself, but whatever the reason, you have to just be slightly early on the button sequence, else you start the combination all over again. And I'm pretty sure that this is just the game, as I have very vivid memories of being just as equally frustrated with this spell back in the day when I was playing on a CRT, and I've always been pretty good at rhythm games.
Excellent, Harry. 5 points to Gryffindor.
Fourth, you learn Aviforce, which is the transfiguration spell that turns statues into birds and really nothing else. And then finally, you learn Vertimilius, a dark arts spell that can create platforms that are normally hidden. I think you use each of these spells exactly twice throughout the entire game.
Impressive. 5 points to Gryffindor.
You also learn how to mix potions from Snape, which allows you to make health potions in cauldrons later on in the game. Of course, it's weird that they're presented in a classroom form, as you can't fail any of these classes. If you don't pass it the first time, you simply keep trying until you're able to do it again, as the game requires you have to have these abilities later on. Occasionally, you'll do something in the game that will reward you with house points, much like how the fictional school actually works. At the end of certain segments of the game, sort of as a means of transition to let you know that you've passed through an act of the game, Dumbledore will let you know who's in the lead with house points by showing you the giant color-coded hourglasses. Since every other house is basically never present in the game and controlled by a computer, I assume that the house points are just sort of assigned to them at random. But then also, whenever we do Gryffindor's points, they're always just my points. Are you telling me Harry is the only student being awarded or unawarded points? And then on top of that, if you've read or seen the first book or the movie, then you already know that by the end of the thing, Slytherin is going to seemingly win, with Dumbledore last minute awarding you and your friends house points for, justifiably so, defeating Voldemort. So that being said, what's the point of the house points? I mean, I guess when making a Harry Potter game, it would feel strange without them to the fans of the series, but you can't really make them an amassable point value in the game, only to not have them serve any purpose gameplay-wise. You can't even lose the House Cup at the end of the game. The first parts of the game are probably the best, as they have the best atmosphere. Nothing is too difficult to process yet, and you really get a feel for this version of Hogwarts. It's very comfy. The echoes of footsteps as you traverse the castle and unlock new places are very calming. The first boss is Draco Malfoy, as he blocks your path from leaving the school to visit the grounds. He's rather simple, as you're auto-targeted on him, and he throws bombs that he lovingly refers to as wizard crackers.
Let me teach you about wizard crackers.
Which I know is just a very British way of naming something, but it does not at all sound menacing when he says it. It just sounds dumb.
Now, Potter, I'll give you a taste of my super wizard crackers.
Super wizard crackers! All you have to do is catch the small bombs that fall on the floor before they go off and throw them back at him. In his second and third forms, you're avoiding him throwing the large bombs, while his lackeys Crabbe and Goyle continue to throw small ones that you can use to hit him with. Once outside, you take herbology and you learn a new spell, and then you go and visit Hagrid in his hut and...
You did well in your herbology
Oh
class.
boy.
Harry,
Man, I mean, you know, the memes are usually right, but sometimes I think we all really just do feel like PS1 Hagrid. Like, that's a face that you can relate
some
to.
very strange goings on.
Hagrid needs you to venture into the woods to find fire seeds. And I really love these tree-textured solid walls that make up the forest in this game. Sometimes the limitations of an old system can just lend charm to its presentation. Like today, obviously, that would look stupid, but seeing castle walls juxtaposed to these literal walls of trees is just very nostalgic and cute. Where in the woods would there just be open rivers of lava flowing like this? I know this is the wizarding world and all, but are we just going to believe that there's an active volcano somewhere in the woods outside of Hogwarts? Before returning to the castle, we're met with Draco again, and this time he's stolen Neville's Remember-All, and it's up to Harry to fly on his broom to catch up with Draco in order to get it back. Again, broom handling is a slog to get through as you're constantly fighting the controls. The brooms in this game are definitely hindered the most when they're in tight corridor-like levels, which, for the most part, is exactly what the game designers keep putting these damn things in. This entire chase with Malfoy is a goddamn maze, and I'm on this stupid broom, and I can't make turns. It sucks. Right after that, if you retire to broomsticks, guess what? You get to play a game of Quidditch.
Is that the snitch?
Same thing as before, it's not as bad. You aren't required to hit every ring as you fly, and basically you just have to get enough of them to get a chance to catching the snitch before the opponent does. The Quidditch pitch is bigger than the maze-like levels we've been in before, so it's not as bad to maneuver in, but I'm still getting Superman 64 vibes off this whole thing. This just does not feel like it's an effortless broom sport. It feels like a chore. Why do you keep wanting me to play Quidditch?
Library books, by definition, are not to be taken from the library.
Okay, bro, we need to talk about whatever the hell you think a library is, because the exact definition of a library is that you borrow the books. Alright, so of course you go to potions class, and at this point you realize everything you do in this game is a minigame of some kind, and it will most likely require a time series of button presses. You make your way through the dungeons and... Kitten! There's a kitten down here! Holy shit! 10 out of 10! IGN! Game of the Year! Kitten! God, lots of busy work. This traverse a series of maze levels, do some piss-poor platforming, go somewhere new, learn a transfiguration spell, turn a statue into a bird, get to a new maze level, wash, rinse, repeat. God, the platforming in this game! There's a level where Peeves the Poltergeist has stolen a package from you and he challenges you to a race across the castle attic in order to get it back. This is not skippable, it is not optional, this is a main part of the game, and right here is where the real depths of how terrible these controls just simply shine through. They are so bad that you are constantly misjudging your jumps as you slip and slide around on these beams. They've been greased to make things more difficult, but wrestling with the controls was a challenge in and of itself.
Now mind you, up until that point, I was playing the way God intended, on an original PS1 controller with only a D-pad. But you know what? F*** that noise. I decided to go for the PS2's estranged gray cousin, the original DualShock.
And nothing changes! The game was designed to be played with a D-pad, and so to account for that, the added analog stick simply kept the digital controls and mapped them to the stick's direction. Now granted, you can use the analog function to make Harry go slower in certain areas, which does help keep his footing on the slippery surfaces, but the control mechanisms remain largely the same, and as such, using an analog stick makes no difference.
This game is bogged down with so many trial and error moments. Difficult traversal, whoops, you goofed, better start over!
Crappy stealth section, whoops, the cat saw you, better start from the beginning, whoops, the cat saw you, better start from the beginning, whoops, the cat saw you, better start from the beginning, whoops, the cat...
Oh my god. The mine carts.
This is quite possibly the worst part of the game, hands down, no exceptions. You are tasked with getting money out of Gringotts Bank in order to buy items that Hagrid has sent you to get, which, frankly, aside, that's kind of f***ed up, ain't it? Hagrid takes me all the way to Diagon Alley to buy stuff for him, and I'm the one who's paying for this? I am an impressionable 11-year-old who looks up to this guy because he's been the only teacher to really befriend me since I got to this godforsaken school, and he just moseys on down to the only wizard shopping center we know of and just asks me to start buying him stuff while he goes off to the pub and gets drunk. However, what makes this infinitely worse is the way you have to go about getting the money. Going into the bank triggers a series of minigames. First, you notice that this guy over here cleaning the shit out of these floors. The goblin at the first door says that in order to get into the vault, you need to collect the proper paperwork. The horrors of bureaucracy. Except he means literally collect them, as in they were dropped all over the bank floor, and you must get them all, and within a certain amount of time. Also, Squeaks McLean over here has turned these floors into a literal ice rink, so you slip-slide your way into the scrolls and collect them on time, but that's not enough. Now you have to go into the bank's mine and collect the coins on this rickety spinning mine cart that controls about as well as everything else so far. You push the X button to lock the cart into its position and rotate in order to collect stuff. Like the brooms, the hitboxes are so unnecessarily precise that you're often left missing several coins just for turning the cart just a smidge too far in the wrong direction. But if that isn't bad enough, every time you fail this part, you have to wait for the entire vault to reload before you can try again.
I'm not editing this. This is really what my game is doing right now. Okay, so I can't technically fault the game design on this one. That might just be my game. There's some sort of microscopic scratch on it somewhere that I just can't locate that's probably causing the issue. But boy, just having to wait really just sinks in how poorly designed this game actually is.
While you would normally only wait a matter of seconds, the added length I had to go to in order to capture footage to finish this game really just exemplified the atrocious game design. Having to wait literally 5 or 6 minutes in between attempts at the level really just makes you stop and think to yourself,
why am I wasting my time on this? I'm not having fun. This isn't fun anymore.
The rest of the Diagon Alley missions are just as tedious. A minigame about collecting a toad in a series of boxes because Lord knows that's fun. Mindlessly levitating a peanut to feed an owl. And this godforsaken bit with a peacock, where the game has seemingly such a hard time rendering the damn thing that it lags every time I get close to it, completely ruining my own sense of timing and ability to chase it down. Towards the end, when I was about to give up, it luckily glitched and started running in circles, so I was able to win. Everything is a rhythm game. Press a sequence of buttons. All you do is press buttons in order. Push buttons in the right order to make the dog go to sleep. Shoot glowing tentacles, then do the Incendio spell, and push buttons in the right order to burn the plant down. Wizard's Chest! Wizard Chest is literally just figuring out the correct order of squares to solve a logic puzzle. God, the way this game tries to gamify the story elements is the equivalent of taking the actual Harry Potter book and making it so that you have to solve a crossword puzzle before you turn to the next chapter. I gotta use my Wingardium Leviosa to move the objects out of the way for the troll? I can't just lift this shit. I gotta magic my way out of every mundane task? I got hands! It's not heavy! It's a chair! Oh my god. The ball under the cup game. Gah! The gross amount of stupid minigames on display here. This is just Mario Party with more steps. The most interesting part of the game is the final fight with Voldemort, where you actually have to use your environment against him. You trick him into following you into a spot where you can hit him, either knocking over pillars or using the Mirror of Erised as like a kind of spell magnifying glasses. Hitting it with a Flipendo Jinx causes it to go all Death Star and shoot a laser beam attack at the other end. But even then, they have to end it with a dumb minigame, as they have you button mashing square to fill an energy meter to defeat Quirrell and Voldemort's stupid textured face.
And with that, the game is over, and the credits roll, and you realize Jeremy Soule was the musical composer of this game, and suddenly everything fits into place, because all of the tracks were just as banging as an Elder Scrolls game. For my final rating, I give Harry Potter on the PS1 a 6 out of 10. Which you might be thinking is actually kind of high for all of the complaining I did, but hear me out.
Gameplay-wise, it's barely above average in terms of what it sets out to do. The collection of minigames that make up the main course of what you'll be doing in this action game aren't very ambitious, and the atrocious platforming controls when it is trying to be an action game just fall flat in how hard it is to maneuver. However, the atmosphere that it tries to convey is actually rather impressive for a game made on the PS1. There's charm to these hallways. Great care was taken in presenting an interactive experience of Hogwarts for probably some people's very first time in a video game. It presents the castle as a hub for all the linear levels, and while you are strictly set on the path from the beginning, some of the game's order of completion is entirely up to you, and there is a semi-open world, and that's rather ambitious for a PS1 title. Besides the obvious mechanical problems, my biggest gripes are that the designers gamified everything in the worst ways possible. All of the things that are present could maybe have been fixed with just a little more time and polish. What I think I really wanted the most out of this game was a more open-ended experience, maybe sort of like a Metroidvania. Different parts of Hogwarts locked off to you because you don't know all the spells yet, so you're actually incentivized to go to class and learn new ones.
But you can see them off in the distance and you say, hey, wow, if I just learned how to Wingardium Leviosa myself up that platform there, maybe I could actually go to potions class on time. This is, of course, unfortunately another example of a PC game ported to a console just not living up to the expectation of what you expect from a PC game. But for the most part, I still had fun. This is still a childhood game. I still enjoy the Zelda-esque exploration. I still enjoy the puzzles and the silliness of it. Yeah, it's hard, and yeah, a lot of it's stupid, but you know what? I think for the most part, it really does give you that genuine Harry Potter feel that only a game on the PS1 could. But ultimately, did we answer the question? Is Harry Potter a December thing?
Come what may. Merry Christmas, Mr. Wayne.
Merry Christmas, Albert.
Oh, I see how it is. All right, we're going to put a really big check on the aging, sweaty man just trying to do his job, because if Bruce Wayne ain't that, then I don't know what is.